When you think of teams who have the best chance to win a ring this season, you probably think of teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics, Warriors, Suns, and even the 76ers. And rightfully so. The Bucks have arguably the best big three in the NBA with Giannis, Holiday, and Brook Lopez. The Celtics were just in the finals last year. The Warriors are the defending champs. The Suns now have a 7-foot monster in KD along with Devin Booker. And of course, the 76ers have Joel Embiid, who has played out of his mind this season. But what if I told you the Los Angeles Clippers may be the dark horse favorites? And to prove that to you, we're going to break down and analyze every important player on the roster to get a better understanding on how exactly they could dominate throughout the postseason. First, let's start with the Claw himself, Kawhi Leonard. Leonard's averaging 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists per game while shooting 51% from the field, 87% from the free throw line, and 41% from 3 on 4.8 attempts per game. So he's having yet another really great and efficient year. And we all know how incredible he plays in the postseason. And sure, it has been a while since we've seen him in the playoffs, but we all know what he's capable of. And in the 50-plus games he's played this season, he's shown that he's still an elite player in this league. On offense, he's still dominating, especially in the mid-range. He's 6th in mid-range shot percentage, shooting 49% on 5 attempts per game. It's still his go-to move, and it's nearly unstoppable. And besides DeMar DeRozan, he most resembles Michael Jordan in this aspect. And it's because, like Jordan, his opponents already know he's going to the mid-range. But even still, they have a very difficult time trying to stop him. And when you're just as elite at making contested jump shots as open jump shots, it's pretty obvious to understand why he's so good there. And honestly, if he had played more games this year, it wouldn't be surprising to see him as a top 3 player in mid-range shots. But here is why being a mid-range master is much needed in big games, especially in the playoffs. As you know, the game is so much faster now. It's more up and down, and that can lead to many forced threes early in the shot clock, which would be lost possessions if you were to miss. But in the midst of all the chaos, if you have someone like Kawhi who aggressively gets to the mid-range at will and makes them consistently, you'll have a lot more control of the game as a whole. It's like when one team has all of the momentum, and then Kevin Durant calmly walks down the court and easily walks into a mid-range shot at the elbow just to silence the crowd. It's a really underrated shot that isn't really utilized as much as it should, although we are seeing more and more mid-range specialists rise up over the years like De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, DeJounte Murray, and SGA. But Kawhi's offensive talent doesn't stop there, because like we mentioned earlier, he's shooting 40% from 3 on good volume, and that's actually his best 3-point percentage since 2015. So he's been a knockdown shooter this year, along with dominating from 15 to 19 feet. The Clippers are 3rd in the NBA in 3-point percentage as a team, and now that you have your best players shooting lights out, the sky's the limit for this organization. But, of course, we cannot wrap up a Kawhi Leonard breakdown without mentioning his defense. Now, Kawhi is not the same Defensive Player of the Year caliber player he once was, but he's still a really good defender. And he really isn't needed to be the Clippers' primary lockdown defender, because the Clippers are one of the most switchable defenses in the league today. They are all tall, long, and just good defenders in general. So Leonard can really just pick his spots. But that's not to say he's been lazy on D, because he's averaging 1.5 steals per game. So he is definitely still getting his large, nearly inhuman hands on the basketball. And that's why he's an excellent team defender for the Clippers. He's always been an elite off-ball and help defender. But now let's talk about the former MVP Russell Westbrook. And aside from him being a turnover machine, we honestly see him being more of an advantage than disadvantage for their playoff run. For one, he's still one of the best fast break scorers in the NBA. And like we mentioned, playoff games are extremely fast-paced at times. And if you've seen Russ play, especially lately, you know that's where he excels. He can still get downhill with the best of them. He's physical, strong, relentless, and he's still got good touch at the rim, even though it definitely comes and goes at times. And yes, he is turnover prone, there's no getting around that, but if he manages his minutes correctly, we don't see it being much of a problem. He's averaging around 28 to 29 minutes per night, and that's perfect for what he brings to the table. On offense, he can provide a little more than just getting to the rim. He's a pretty good facilitator and passer, something the Clippers desperately needed before he signed. This releases a lot of ball handling duties for Kawhi. And we're not saying Russ is an amazing facilitator and decision maker, but when he's in the zone, Russ can lead a team in that department. In the mid-range, he's slowly been improving there as well. For the season, he's shooting 43% from the mid-range on on a couple of attempts per game, but over his last 13 games, he's shooting 50% on a couple attempts per game. This is honestly huge news, because we all know that he's a terrible three-point shooter, but if he can make up for it by being a threat in the mid-range, this will elevate the Clippers' offense even more. And on the defensive end, he's not as bad as some make him out to be. In fact, this season has arguably been his best defensive season in a while. He's not a lockdown defender or anything, but when he's surrounded by really long defenders, he becomes the point of attack defender, and he can really affect the game on this end of the court. And we saw this at the beginning of the season with the Lakers. He was a pretty solid point of attack defender, but the lack of help defense from the Lakers often resulted in him giving up on layups. But now, with a bigger and longer defense, he does a decent job at forcing his man into help defense without giving up blow-bys as much. But now let's talk about their big man, Ivica Zubac. He's averaging 10, 10, and 1 while shooting 63% from the field and 69% from the free throw line. He is without a doubt one of the most underrated centers in the NBA. He does everything you need a center to do. He rebounds, defends, sets solid screens, and rolls hard. And on the defensive end, he's really stood out this year. He's third in the NBA in contested twos, third in contested shots, and 18th in blocks per game with 1.3. He really is one of the more solid all-around bigs in the league. But the Clippers defense does not stop there, because then you have Nicholas Batum and Robert Covington as your two-way wing defenders. Their defensive effort and contributions will be huge in the playoffs. The Western Conference has loads of great offensive talent, so having multiple good wing defenders will be crucial. And not to mention, they're both shooting nearly 40% from three as well. As for their backup center, Mason Plumlee, he's doing exactly what's asked from him. He's averaging 10 points and 9 rebounds in about 26 minutes. Then you have Marcus Morris Sr. and Eric Gordon, who've both showed the ability to hit big shots when needed. And Morris is yet another good-sized defender you can throw at opposing team's second or third best scorer. But if the Clippers are going to be getting a ring, then these three bench players need to step up big time. We're talking about Norman Powell, Bones Hyland, and Terrence Mann. These three are some of the best bench players in the entire NBA. Powell is a bucket getter. There's no way around that. He's averaging 17 points while shooting 48% from the field, 81% from the free throw line, and 39% from three on 4 attempts per game. And over his last 8 games, he's averaging 21 points. So he's heading into the playoffs on a bit of a hot streak. He's a veteran that Kawhi really trusts. He's always going to make the right decisions. He's going to hustle, and if you need him to handle the rock, he can do that as well. His scoring, along with his defense, could potentially make or break their championship run. Because in a series, you need more than just your star player making all of the shots. You need a player like Norman Powell to chip in. But if he's having an off game, you still have Bones Hyland, who's averaging 11, 2, and 3 while shooting 37% from 3 and 84% from the line. He's not as polished of a scorer as Norman Powell, but he does give you an extra option on offense. He's getting better as a catch-and-shoot threat, and he's a crafty isolation player who can give you buckets when he's hot. As for Terrence Mann, he does all of the little things on both ends of the floor. He isn't necessarily great in one specific area, but he just knows how to play basketball. He's a solid defender, good cutter, and plus he's shooting nearly 39% from 3. All in, the Clippers are stacked from head to toe. They have shooters, defenders, centers, and a great head coach. But we gotta address the elephant in the room, the one guy we have yet to mention. Paul George. PG-13 wasn't mentioned because we still aren't sure if he's even going to play in the first or second rounds of the playoffs. But when, or if, he does come back, we don't think we need to explain how big of an impact that'll be. He's putting up just as good of numbers as Kawhi, averaging 23, 6, and 5 while shooting 37% from 3 and 45% from the field. And not to mention, he's still a pretty good defender. But what do you think? Can the Clippers finally win a ring this season? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.